orientation session that we held. This is our 7th event, 7th Saturday seminar. So time flies, and it's been a great journey and will continue to be one. So thanks to everyone and for giving up a piece of your Saturday. And if you would, or be patient with me, and I would like to start out this morning with sharing the norms, reviewing those with you. So we'd ask that you participate respectfully, be considerate, and welcome multiple viewpoints. Devote your attention to those speaking and sharing. Ask questions for clarification. Be courageous and speak your truth. Own your intentions and your impacts. And ask that you honor our time together. So if you would, I'd love to go over the agenda with you, and we're very excited this morning to have several distinguished speakers for us. I'm going to start out this morning with Veronica Sullivan, who's our Director of Division of IDEA Implementation in Preschool with the Kentucky Department of Education. And then I'm going to provide some Academy updates, pretty much talking about 2 points. And Becca will then lead us into a whole activity. And our keynote speaker, we're very excited to have Superintendent Barry Lee, who is the superintendent of Casey County Public Schools. And he's also been a former director, and he's going to share with us some retaining and retention and recruitment efforts on, as he sees it from where he sits, and also what resources are available to himself and his Board of Education, local Board of Education. Little break, and then when we come back, we'll be in our breakout rooms to look at some questions with our facilitators, and come back together and share our highlights, and then the evaluation and wrap up with myself. So the agenda. So do we have any questions regarding the agenda, or are there any accommodations that need to be made for folks to enjoy today that we're not aware of? Okay. So hearing none, we'd ask that Veronica Sullivan, who's the Director of Division of IDEA Implementation in Preschool, or the acronym of OCEAL, with the department. So without further ado, the stage is yours, Veronica.
Thank you, Pete. So first of all, I'm so excited about this group. We were excited about this grant even before you all came on board. This prospect of KDE having the opportunity to work closely with future leaders was super exciting for OCEAL. So I was asked today to come and just sort of talk to you a little bit about my journey into leadership, and then a little bit about what our division does. So one thing I think is super important is following your passion, and that's going to make you a stronger leader, regardless of what that passion is. I was a retail manager prior to going into education, so education was like my second career. What led me there was the birth of my twins. My twins were born with special needs, and very different special needs. And as a parent, I had to try to learn to navigate the world to support them. And it was difficult, and especially with the different needs. And I never dreamed I would end up in education, but what I learned from that personal experience is that there are people who have greater knowledge in areas and people who need support in those areas, and including parents. I was very fortunate to already have some college behind me as a parent and to teach myself, so to speak. And but I decided I needed to do more, and I had therapists involved in my children's lives, and that just wasn't really the road for me, because I wanted to try to make a difference, right? I wanted to try to support parents. I wanted to try to support children. And then I started to want to support teachers. And as I grew as an educator in the classroom, I expanded within my district and started to try to teach teachers and support teachers. And so all along, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to stay in a classroom, although I loved it and it was very difficult to leave that arena. I knew I had to do more, right? I just had this sense of needing to do more. And one of the things that was always frustrating to me when I was a teacher was the hyper focus on compliance. Compliance is super important. It's definitely needed, and it actually provides the leverage, so to speak, to give those individual students what they need. But what was lacking, at least in my mind, was that balance of focusing on instruction, effective instruction, and compliance, both at the same time. And it always amazed me that if you were really focusing on instruction and had compliance in mind, how much easier it was to be compliant. And so I left my district and I went to KDE. And when I say I went to KDE, I traveled 120 miles one way to go to KDE. I did that for many, many years, and I did it because I wanted to make a difference. And I was afforded the opportunity to do what Andrea Craig, so sorry to call you out, Andrea, is doing, which was a state transformation specialist. So I started to learn about systems change and how to impact the system, which is always what I kind of had in my mind anyway. And then that led me to growth in leadership. And from there, I became the assistant director of the Division of Learning Services, which was what OCL was previous to becoming an office. And once I did that, then when we became an office, I became a director of a division. And I'm going to just share my screen with you to kind of show you what our division does, because it is, make sure it's sharing. Whoops. Can everybody see that, or can somebody tell me they can see that?
I see it.
Yes, I can see that.
Perfect, thank you. So what our division does, we really took...
You don't have a pop-up tent? We need to get you one. I know, but we need a pop-up tent. They're really cheap. I'll talk to Dr. Dorr. We'll get something. Won't help today, sorry.
So what our division does is we focus on improving effective instruction for students with disabilities and for preschool students and gifted and talented students, students with disabilities who are EL, and for extended school services. So it's a lot. It isn't just students with disabilities, but it's students who have exceptional needs and need differentiation, right? So that's really the focus of the entire division. The State Personnel Development Grant is focused on improving teacher practice, as well as the State Systemic Improvement Plan. It focuses on improving effective practices in the area of mathematics and really improving the system of support for students with disabilities. We also have the guidance and support branch, and all the guidance documents, the instructional resource page, all of that comes out of that branch. We also focus on transitions and parent engagement, and that's been an area that we've really tried to grow at the state level, because typically it's really more at the district level. But what we found was that we weren't at the state level providing that level of support. Then the school readiness branch, that's our preschool branch, our state funded preschool branch. We do all things state funded preschool, and we also have extended school services in that branch. So our division really is of the mindset that support leads to student success, and teacher support, leadership support, and providing the tools that are needed to focus on effective instruction and focus on effective programming and focus on compliance, effective compliance, right? So, you know, there's sort of this thought process that compliance is so important, instruction is so important, but it really is that balance. They both are important. And you really need to, and as leaders, I hope that you can go into the field with that mindset, because it's difficult in your new positions when you leave here to get sucked into focus on compliance, because it's what's going to get you in trouble, right? And so that accountability is really what people get focused on. And when you're so busy and you have so many things going on and you are trying to balance just your day-to-day work, you'll start to lean towards compliance. It's just natural. But I'm here today to try to convince you to try to pull yourself out of that and think about instruction. Think about effective instruction and keep that in your mind at all times, even when you're really needing to focus on compliance in your mind, because it is hard. It's not an easy thing to do. But if we're going to see success for students with disabilities, we have to focus on that support to educators, and we have to focus on that effective instruction to see that come to fruition. So I'm so glad you're all here. Obviously, whenever, even when you go back into your jobs, we are here to help. Reach out to our division if you have any of these needs, and we love to help. That's really what we do every day. So I'm going to stop talking now and let you move on.
Thank you, Veronica. Yeah, it's there's no question the conflict or the tension between instruction and compliance is just a huge piece of where the science of this work is, and Dr. Lee will reinforce that, actually. So I've had an opportunity to have a sneak preview of his PowerPoint, so that's a very, very great lead in and segue, Veronica. 200% unplanned, but we'll take it. So thank you very much. I'd like to get into the updates, and I apologize for reading, but I will say that much of this information will be available on SharePoint, and we will post it up. So there will be an archive available going forward. So two things I'd like to speak about. One, cause for celebration, and as I mentioned earlier, the timeline of where we've been as a cohort and as a grant and where we're headed. And indeed, we anticipate the process of the selection process has been completed, has been approved by our associate commissioner. And so we are going forward, anticipated for next week, and send out those notifications. And we have indeed 15 members in this cohort recommended for selection. So we will, in the month of October, we plan to have a standalone orientation meeting, much like we did with cohort 1 at the very the beginning of our work together. Kind of get to know each other, share out expectations, and assignments, projects, if you will. And so for the first time, we will be joining cohort 1 and cohort 2 that following Saturday on October the 23rd. So the vision is that we repeat this process for the next 2 years. So for a total of 60, maximum 60 scholars. So as we mentioned at the very beginning of cohort 1, there'll only be one first cohort, so you can maintain bragging rights, and so that piece is quite exciting to us and hopefully to you folks. The second topic I'd like to speak about is we have met with the leadership and with the Institute of Higher Education, the universities, the partner universities, Murray State, Morehead State, and Western Kentucky University, and have had a conversation around the capstone experiences and what that might look like. And so we've fleshed that out a little bit and have some solid information to share with you. And as I said earlier, this will be posted on SharePoint, so there's no need to frantically take notes or type in the chat. So first and foremost, as we mentioned in the past, the capstone, the requirement will be through your universities. They have agreed to support the project. And many of you have, the individual differences among the 3 partner universities is not our place to get involved with. So first and foremost, the capstone for Kentucky Leads will be the capstone required through your university. Okay. We would like you to present your capstone to a group of colleagues, scholars, and professionals. And we see that as happening in one of 4 options. We have professional conferences available, and that would include our Kentucky CEC, the Kentucky Association of Teacher Educators, a rural conference. Those 3, as you're aware, in November for the CEC conference, Kate is in September and Acres is in March. So as you're also aware, the tenure as a scholar continues for a number of months. And so there's you all are in all different places with your capstone. So we've offered the opportunities to participate or present at one of these 3 conferences. In addition, the 4th option would be you can present at a Saturday seminar to fellow Leads participants. So if, again, the additional information will be posted, and we can support you as far as proposals. We can support you as far as cost of participation. So something to think about, and we will, at that, I will, so those 2 points of the cohort 2 beginning next month, and the capstone, the fleshing out of our capstone project with the support of our 3 partner universities. We've added some detail to that. So I'd like to get back to the agenda and see where we are with the poll activities. And Becca, if you are such that you can make that happen.
I don't know if you guys can hear me or see me. I have had a little bit of trouble with this meeting today. Can you guys hear
Yes.
me?
We can both see you, although albeit somewhat frozen, jerky, but for sure we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I will just close my camera then and ask Bill to bring up the PowerPoint of the questions. Bill, can you do that for me, please? I'm trying to use the poll in the chat, but I have some limited
Yes.
abilities right now, so I think we'll just use the slide.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
So some questions today to think about, just to get your mind and thoughts in the right direction before Dr. Lee's presentation. You're welcome to put your thoughts in the chat if you'd like, but some questions that will get us going. How can leadership support the retention of special education teachers? We know right now that the retention of teachers, and specifically special education teachers, is a topic that as a state we are struggling with. It's a challenge, or that's a topic of conversation. So if you would like, you can put your thoughts in the chat. Don't worry about complete sentences or spelling or anything like that. But what are some points that come to your mind when you think about leadership? Katie shared by providing a clear system of support, by being visible and available. That's Lindsay. Allison says providing adequate training, resources, support in school building, being present and responsive. Feeling like you have an advocate for you and your students is incredibly important. Support weekly or bi-weekly meetings by providing resources. Listen to what new teachers need and be responsive. So I'm seeing a theme develop there. Be visible and being the lead teacher, someone who can be responsive to the need of staff and families. Be present. Those are great. Yes, thank you for sharing. On a scale of 1 to 5, oh, Misty shared, I think special ed teachers cannot be treated the same as general education teachers. Often their role is not supported with PD in buildings, and feedback is not specific to the unique role of the special educator. That's a good point, Misty. On a scale of 1 to 5, how confident are you with supporting SDI implementation? So just numbers on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not very knowledgeable, 5 being an expert. How confident are you with supporting SDI implementation? Oh, good. Seeing some 4s, a couple 3s. On a scale of 1 to 5, how knowledgeable is your superintendent and local board with special education policy? When it comes to policy, how knowledgeable is your superintendent and local board? We're hitting that midline again, mostly threes. Stacy's unknown. Josh, new to the district this year, so he's not sure yet. That's great. So be thinking about these 3 questions while we're listening to Dr. Lee's presentation, and then carry those thoughts into your breakout rooms. And we can continue the conversation there. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Bill, can you jump in and facilitate, please?
Yes, I believe next up is Superintendent Lee. Welcome, Superintendent Lee. Everyone looks forward to your presentation, and just when you're ready, feel free to share, and thanks again.
All right, thank you. I'd like to say good morning to everyone. I am Barry Lee, Superintendent in Casey County. Going on my 2nd month as superintendent. Just give you a little bit of my background in the world of special education. I started out as a special education teacher 20 years ago, and spent several years in the classroom, and then moved on to a high school principal position where I had a lot of dealings with special education, and then moved into the role of director of special education, and was able to do that for the last 9 years, and then again moved into the role of superintendent a month and a half ago. So it's been an extremely start of the school year. I hope things are going well for all of our scholars. And first, I want to start by saying thank you for choosing to lead, choosing to further your education to be a leader. And hopefully just through this session and the program, the cohort that you're in, you're getting a lot of experience of what it takes in that next step to be a leader. You had a lot of good positive comments of things that need to be of being visible and understanding policy and things like that. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, for the poll question of how confident you are in your superintendent and board members when it comes to special education policy, you are very gracious. Those numbers were a lot higher than was anticipated, and I'll kind of talk about that in the presentation. Moving forward, just I do adjunct at Eastern and also at Campbellsville University in some leadership programs. And then I also serve as vice president for Kentucky CASE, Council of Administrators in Special Education. So I try to stay really involved in the world of special education, and I will continue to do that as superintendent. And as we go through the presentation, I encourage you to ask questions as we move along. I know Bill and some of the others will be monitoring the chat box for me, but feel free to ask any questions, and I'll do my best to answer those questions for you as we move through. I do want to say thank you to all those for the invite to be able to speak to you this morning. So when it comes to looking at supporting superintendents and board members, one thing that I will tell you in your journey to be a director of special education, and I'll start at the bottom of the slide presentation here, and hopefully you can see it, and is be confident, because more than likely you are the expert. I can tell you from my experience as a classroom teacher, my experience as a high school principal, and again, 9 years of a director of special education in 2 districts. I started out as director in Casey County, which is a smaller district. Then I moved to director of special education program in Pulaski County for several years. And then I moved back to Casey County as director again. So I've had that experience of large district, small district, and I want to assure you, you are the expert. And so that's why in your role as a director of special education, it is so important if you look at the list of items of how you can support superintendents and school boards. I would say probably across the board, except for experienced superintendents, and most of them would be very confident to tell you that they do have limited knowledge when it comes to special education. If they've never gone through that understanding of what it is to be a classroom teacher, a special education teacher, the role of a director of special education and then moving into a superintendent role, they will tell you that oftentimes that could be a weakness for them. And, you know, I'm thinking right now, I have probably just in my cohort, there are 3 or 4 superintendents that were directors of special education. So of course their knowledge is going to be a little bit higher when it comes to special education policy and regulations and things like that. But as a director of special education or a director of exceptional children in a school district, you will be the go-to person to answer the questions of support. You would be the person who's going to kind of dictate and guide your special education program. One thing that's really different in a role of directors of special education, a lot of times it also depends on the size of your school district. If you're talking about a director in a larger school district such as Fayette or Jefferson or Oldham, your role is going to be strictly facilitator, understanding policy, guiding the compliance piece, versus in a smaller, mid to smaller school district, you are going to take more of an active hands-on role when it comes to compliance, policy, but also the instructional piece. And again, that's just because larger districts typically will deal with different things than a smaller school district or mid-sized school district would deal with. But it always starts out for your support to school, supporting superintendents and school board members is knowing your district policies. In the chat box real quick, how many of you, again, I don't know the current position that you're in, maybe a classroom teacher or a liaison or something like that pursuing to a leadership role. How many of you have read your district special ed policies? And you please be honest with me. You don't have to, it's not going to make you look bad or anything if you've not read. How many of you have read your district policies? Okay, so some's not in a district, all right. Thank you for being honest, some of them. Okay. All right, so some are not in a district, okay. So that's one thing I would encourage you as if you're in the classroom or if your role is tied to a specific district, or even if you're not in a district. I've got a link on the slide here that goes to our special education policies for Casey County. And let me see if I can get this open real quick for you. And the reason you want to know your district's special education policies just comes down to the simple fact of having an understanding of why you do what you do. Now, everything you do in the world of special education is not going to be specifically in your policies, because some of it becomes daily or just district practices or practices within a school setting. But you want to make sure that you have an underlying understanding of why you do what you do. Because when it comes to due process hearings, when it comes to litigation, when it comes to questions that you may get from board members or even superintendents, you want to make sure that you can answer those questions as a director of special education. One thing I would always do at the beginning of every school year, I would just sit down and I would start reading through certain parts of my policies. And you realize some are used more than others. But you want to make sure that you have that understanding, again, to be able to answer the questions. Because if you look through here, these are pretty uniform. Most of your district policies were adopted probably around 2003, and there have been some updates. If you look at Casey County, we went through the Kentucky School Boards Association model that was adopted or created in 2008, and we re-adopted in 2013 when we made some changes to practices for specific learning disabilities. But again, when board members have questions, or if a community member were to call a board member, and sometimes they may, that's different for larger to mid to small districts of how involved some board members are. In a smaller district, it's easy for the neighbor to call a board member and say, you know what, I have a child with a disability and I don't understand what's going on. So the board member may call the superintendent, or the board member may call you as a director of special education and just say, can you explain this, or would you want to contact this family and provide them some support? So as you go through your policies as a new director of special education, the first thing you want to do is say, okay, if you are hired in a district that you're currently in, or you go to a new district, you want to do a comparison of this is what the policy says, but this is what we're actually doing. And you want to make sure that those mesh together, because sometimes you're going to find conflicts, and that's going to get you if it were to be an issue with due process or an issue of just establishing eligibility. Veronica talked about the role of compliance, and we'll discuss that here in a moment. But your policies kind of guide that, along with the support from OSIL and other information that's provided to us. But again, if you're not in a school district, I would encourage you to look at a large school district's policies, kind of review a mid or a small district policies as well, and just see how things are kind of uniform across the state of Kentucky, but also you're going to find some differences as well. So, when it comes to state and federal policies, of course, we all are under the jurisdiction of a federal law of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And of course, that then there's the Improvement Act that was, has come along. And I know through your journey to be a educator, more than likely you're very familiar with that. But you also want to have an understanding of state policies. And that way, if you see practices within your district that conflict with state and federal policies, you know that you can guide your school board or the superintendent along the way to kind of make those things mesh together. Along with the state and federal policies, the support for superintendents and school boards, it definitely comes down to knowing your procedures. And again, your procedures are going to be different than your policies. But again, you want to make sure that they mesh and tie in together and have an understanding of your budgets. In the state of Kentucky, a lot of special education directors are also preschool directors. So you, as a director of special education, you're going to be presented with the control of a lot of funding. And you want to have an understanding of your IDA budgets, your private school budgets, your care preschool budgets. And knowing that anytime that you're asking for additional staff or anytime that you're trying to ensure that your schools and your teachers have the materials that they need, having that understanding of your budget is going to help guide a lot of your decision making. You'll start to learn things about maintenance of effort. And I think you all had a finance section last month. And so understanding that maintenance of effort, but understanding the funding matrix of what you can spend money on, that's to ensure that you're not in conflict with federal and state policies. Because that money is set aside for students with exceptionality, students with disabilities. And so you want to make sure anything that's being spent is tied back into ensuring that support for students. I can't overemphasize, you're going to be put in some situations sometimes to where they're going to say, you're the director, help us, or help fix this. What's going on? So again, you're going to be considered that expert in the world of special education. And I have found, I'm in 20 years in education, whether it be from my role as a high school principal to a director of special education, even now as superintendent, most employees just need that reassurance from someone at a higher level. They want to know the decision that they're about to make is okay. And again, that's where it comes in, and we'll talk about recruiting, retaining, and supporting our staff here in just a moment. But have that understanding that you're going to be asked a lot of questions in the role of a DOS, and the support that you can provide to your teachers, but then moving into that support for school boards and superintendents is essential. One thing that I've always done in my school district is give an annual update for our special education program. I encourage you to do that if you go into a district that's not doing that, because oftentimes a high percentage of a local budget that superintendents and school boards adopt will tie into the world of special education. So I think it's very important to give them an update, because you're going to have your IDA funds and your preschool funds, but I want to assure you those funds will never, ever be enough to provide services for students with disabilities. I think we're funded, lower than 50% from the Fed level. And then we do get our SEEK add-ons when it comes to funding from the state, but a lot of that ties back into the general fund. So it's very important that, again, you have an understanding of those budgets, but also you want to make sure you're giving your school board members an update, because again, a lot of those general funds from local tax dollars, from state tax dollars, tie back into providing supports for individuals with disabilities. And again, that's how you can support your superintendent and board of you being the expert. If you don't know the answer, find it, study it, research it, contact OSIL. They're a great support for everyone. And again, we'll tie that here as we jump into the next slide. One of the biggest issues we have in the world of special education right now is a critical shortage. So I'm going to show you now this is dated, it is pretty much up to date, but let me see if I can get this link to open here. So I want you to look at the critical shortage list here on your screen. A critical shortage list is presented to the Department of Education in certain areas of the state, but then it is also carried into the federal level of identifying what jobs or job duties within a school district are considered critical shortage areas through certain regions of the state of Kentucky. So if you look here on the right-hand side, you're going to see critical shortage areas. And you're going to start seeing, I want you to look here, especially for the topic we're talking about today, and I want you to start seeing something that's fairly consistent across the state of Kentucky. So if you look here in the Bluegrass area, the Bluegrass area's list is this actually a little bit larger because this one, the current one has not been updated, but this is from previous year. When I think of early childhood education, typically you're talking about the preschool level, which in the state of Kentucky, to be in preschool, you need to either be at risk or have a disability. So early childhood is also, again, we are talking about the world of special education. So I want you to look at some of the norms and some of the consistencies across the state of Kentucky when it comes to critical shortage areas. So here we have the Bluegrass area, again, a rather short list. That list has grown since last year. See if you can start seeing some things that are pretty consistent. So this is the Cumberland region. This includes Casey County, of course, where I'm currently superintendent. Give you a moment to look at that list. Let's look at the other region of the state. Again, these on the right-hand side are those districts where we have critical shortage in these positions. Okay. Here's the Green River. All right, here is the Lincoln Trail. What consistent message are you seeing at this point? All right, so Krista says special education. Andrea says critical shortage in special education and early childhood. You're right, Andrea. And so I wanted to show you that just so you have an understanding of, I like to explain it this way in it. I don't want to sound as we are in panic mode, but we are in crisis mode when it comes to not only special education and early childhood. I think we need to use the term we are in crisis mode when it comes to finding educators in our school system. I had, let's see, this year I hired 3 new special education teachers. Last year I hired 2 new special education teachers. So I posted 2 jobs over the summer. Anybody want to guess how many applications I received for my special education teachers over the summer? So this was June, July. Yes, Stacy, big need for MSD and LBD. How many applications do you think I received for the 2 positions, and then I end up hiring another one after school? So I'm seeing 2, 5, 3, okay, 1, 3. Okay. Josh, you win the prize. I received 0 applications for individuals certified for special education. I posted a position last December, received 0 applications. And I'm not alone. If I were to talk to some of my superintendent colleagues across the state, again, we are moving into that critical area of crisis when it comes to finding those certified. Now, the good thing about this, and it's not a bad thing when we start looking at alternate routes to teaching certification. The thing is, I think there's a lot of great experience that can be learned from outside the world of education and brought into the world of education. So I think most of you may be familiar with the alternative routes. Some of you may have used the alternative route to move into the world of education. But I just want to show you that list here of the possible options when it comes to recruiting special education staff, because if you go into the role of a special education or director, I want to assure you, you are going to be put in situations where you cannot find the individuals that are certified. I think Stacy mentioned definitely in the world of MSD, moderate to severe disabilities, but also when it comes to LBD, learning and behavior disorders. Across the board, there is such a shortage in our part, the southeastern part of the state. Again, you saw the bluegrass wasn't in as high need, excuse me, but several parts of the state, again, they're in the same boat that I'm in of not being able to get any certified employees. And again, so you're kind of forced to look at the different options when it comes to recruiting staff. I'm not sure how many of you have ever viewed these alternate routes. Stacy also mentions a shortage in hearing impaired and vision impaired. Absolutely. That would probably be even more crisis mode than LBD, because even with our alternate routes, we can find individuals sometimes through an option 6, but we do not have a lot of people interested in going to the HIVI route when it comes to alternate certification. So let's look at options 1 and 2. Options 1 and 2 for a school district, you can look at exceptional work experience. You can look at a local district training. At this time, there's no approved local district when it comes to this, so we don't even look at this. Exceptional work experience, candidates with exceptional non-teaching work experience and academic content or have a minimum bachelor's degree can move in to the world of education with a certificate. Of all the options listed here, the one that's used the most is going to be option 6, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. We do have an option for college faculty to be able to move into public education, P through 12. Tying with the college faculty, we can tie in with the adjunct instructor. And again, this all comes down to having that bachelor's degree. We can recruit individuals from the armed forces or veterans that tie into and try to help lead them from their experience into the classroom. I'm not sure this is used as much as it could be and should be. This is an area I think that we could probably do a little bit better of reaching out to some of our armed force veterans to try to get them back into the classroom. Again, it does require that bachelor's degree, as all do. Option 6, for those that are going to be a director of special education, this is going to be your best friend. Option 6 is one of the best routes to bring in individuals that are not certified in LBD, MSD, VI, or HI, or the world of special education. And this is where individuals hold a bachelor's or master's in a non-teaching major, but at that point, upon hire, or if they're in a program, then they are considered as certified as someone that has that certification. So what do we do with this? At this point, what we've been doing, if we have general ed applicants, and for those that are not hired, when they are called and told, if they interviewed for a 3rd grade elementary teaching position and they're not hired, we talk to them and we let them know we currently have a special education position open. If you were enrolled in a program at that time, you could seek option 6. And we are just encouraging individuals, in case they do not find a job in a classroom, a general ed classroom, that they now have that option if they're interested in pursuing that master's degree in special education. And then if we look down to option 7, Institute alternative route. Again, that's not used as much. And then option 8, Teach for America. So these 8 options here allow you different options to help recruit. It helps. Does it fix? No. But again, I think at the legislative level and at the Department of Ed, they've done a great job of trying to provide us some additional support, of bringing in these applicants. And the option 6 can be utilized for not just special education. It can be used for other content areas. Again, Casey County, we're a smaller district, but at my high school alone, counting my special education teachers and other content areas, we currently have 8 option 6 employees. Because again, we're seeing that crisis. No applications for special education teachers, 0 applications for math teachers. That's just not happening in our part of the state. No applications for science teachers. So we are again in that crisis mode. But when it comes to ensuring we're providing the best services for individuals with disabilities, we're trying to do the best we can to bring in the best qualified individuals. These option 6 gives us the opportunity to recruit individuals. But again, your hands are tied sometimes when it comes to having that bachelor's certification or that bachelor's degree to move into an alternate certification. A couple other things we're trying to do is we're trying to grow. We have a Grow Your Own program. We're trying to establish future Teachers of America clubs within our high schools. I've had several conversations with superintendents across the state that are trying to get something like this going, of growing your own teachers. But again, policies tie your hands. If you have a student that participates in Future Teachers of America and they go on to be a teacher, I can't guarantee them a job because we have to go to the interview and the application process. Those are things that I'm currently working with legislators. We need to find a way to ensure individuals, if you meet the standard of college and you're at a proficiency rate, then we're going to promise you a job if one's available when you come back to our community. Again, there's a lot of legal things we need to work through, but we have to start growing our own teachers, because if we don't grow our own educators, again, we're going to eventually end up like some of the other states that have classrooms that are unfilled, or we're going to see that level of expertise that's needed in the classroom diminish. We'll create a policy and you can just stick this person in there. Well, great. I'm thankful that person has a job, but again, are they qualified? Do they have an understanding of special education? Are they coachable to have an understanding of special education? We can't, like I said, diminish the need for that training. And granted, option 6 programs are fantastic. I took advantage of those programs numerous times, but we want to make sure if we could, that we could grow them from the beginning to want to move into that world of special education. And again, we're trying to do that with Future Teachers of America. One thing that I'm really starting to do, we have some unbelievable instructional assistants working in our buildings. And if you're a classroom teacher and you have instructional assistants, or if you're in a program to where you've worked with instructional assistants, we have some that, are rock stars. And so what we're doing now is we're trying to entice those individuals to go back and get that bachelor's degree if you don't have it. And then at that point, we're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you have a job in our school district, and then jump into a master's program through an option 6, and we're going to get you a job. Because again, we have to grow our own or we're not going to get any. And that's not fair to our students. We want to make sure that they have the best options available. So recruiting is going to be a big part of your job as a director of special education. You're going to be trying to get it out on social media. You're going to be talking with principals. Have you interviewed anyone that you felt was a good candidate but just didn't get the position? Reaching out to those individuals, encouraging them to move into an option 6 program if that's something that they choose to do. And then that kind of ties into retaining and developing. So we get a lot of individuals, whether they be from a bachelor's and their focus was 100% special education, or it's an option 6. A lot of our employees come in eager, ready to teach, ready to go. And just because of compliance, we flood them with paperwork. And I've got a little saying, you can't create a form to monitor the form that monitors the forms. Okay. Anybody ever been in that situation where we monitor the forms and for forms and forms, and I've had to do my best to reduce the workload when it comes to paperwork. And I understand that compliance piece is extremely important, and Veronica mentioned that. But I think OSIL has done a fantastic job of explaining that compliance is the floor. You know, compliance is just saying this is what you got to do. And if you just do that, it really is the floor when you stop and think about it. What else can we do for our students? The compliance piece is there, but we can't have so much paperwork consuming our teachers' lives that they can't be strong instructors in the classroom. You know, for those of you that our scholars here this morning, I want you to stop and think how much of your training has been around compliance versus teaching strategies and the academic component. If you were to say for anyone, no matter if you're in the classroom or at a different level, what percentage of your training has been focused on compliance and what percentage has been focused on instructional practices? Throw out some numbers for me. Okay, so Krista says about 80% of hers is compliance. Okay, so Allison, school psych, all right, 75% compliance, 25% instruction, about 75, yeah. And, you know, and as others are thinking about that and typing it in, again, that compliance piece is very, very important. But when it comes to retaining our teachers, sometimes if that's all that we're focused on, it's going to turn some of our educators away from wanting to stay in the profession, because a lot of individuals come in wanting to teach. They want to work with students with disabilities, even if, you know, some may just want to come in, and I have to be honest, some will use special education as a stepping stone to get into a general ed. And we understand that. We know that's going to happen sometimes. But we've also found individuals that may have started that way, but fall in love with special education. But we have so many teachers that you know, if they leave, we'll try to, you know, what's going on? Why do you want to leave? Why are you leaving the profession of education? Why are you leaving the profession of special education? And they'll just say the paperwork. And so again, we have to be very cautious when it comes to retaining our employees to make sure that we are not just making the compliance piece so bogged down with paperwork that they want to leave. I think OSIL has done a fantastic job over the years. You know, I can go back to 20 years ago when I first walked into the classroom, and there was not a whole lot of guidance. Excuse me. But over the last 15 years, KDE and co-ops have done a fantastic job of creating these guide documents. You know, we have the current IEP document. I tell my staff, you know, that's your IEP Bible. But those documents are there, and we read through those documents to where it's less seeking and trying to, I don't even know where to find the answer to these. So we try to train our staff, and that's the part of retaining and developing, making sure that your staff have these guides in their hands. Yes, you can send them a link and they can look on it, but it's, again, most of us from a human nature need that tangible book to look through as a resource. Every year, anytime the IEP guidance document is updated, we create booklets for all of our staff. And we take them and we review them, and we put notes on this page. This is what, you know, where you can find this, this, and this, because it comes in to be a resource as a director of special education. We can take all of these guidance documents to help develop our staff when it comes to compliance, and we can use all the cooperative trainings that we go to when it comes to compliance. But a lot of that time it comes down to capacity building. And what I mean by that is showing the employees, showing the teachers where to find the answer. Because if you just give the answer, guess what's going to happen next time? They're going to contact you again and say, now I don't remember. But if we actually walk through and say, okay, you know, look on page 12 and tell me if you find the answer. And I do that all the time. My staff know if they call me, I'm not going to give them the answer. I'm going to say, let's open up our guide document and turn to page 15. What do you see on there that would help answer your question? And then they're like, oh, yes, here it is. And so I've built that capacity instead of me just giving the answer. But in turn, now this person knows it, I know it. So now I have two people that can answer the questions. And yes, Stacy, I think we all need to do that because it's so easy to want to give our staff the answers immediately because we're the masters of all the knowledge. But I have found over my 9 years as a director, if I could build their capacity, especially my veteran teachers and that are, they know it, but if they know how to help others give the answer, it will help you drastically when it comes to reducing phone calls of supports because you have someone in your buildings that can do that or that can help with that. So again, I encourage you to do that. I see a couple people saying that's a neat idea. And so use that. Don't just give answers, help people find answers. And I promise you as a director of special education, that's going to make things so much easier for you. So all of this ties in again with that retaining and developing, especially when it comes to compliance. But I want to emphasize special education is so much more than compliance. And there's the legal side, but there's also the instructional side. And I've always asked the question, does your staff understand specially designed instruction? And I'm not going to get caught up in the weeds because my time's about up of specially designed instruction. But we have to be very careful that it's not just compliance driven and we're not just homework help. Because if we're just homework help or we're just compliance driven, we have a huge gap in what our true role as special educators and what we're to do for our students with disabilities is really about. I tell my staff, yes, some students need help on homework, but no, we need to teach students strategies. We need to teach students skills. We need to teach content. And that's a juggling act. It's hard to be a master's of specially designed instruction and be a master of algebra 2 content. So you have to juggle these things. So when we're looking at this of the developing and the retaining, I think if we can move just away from compliance, but making sure that our staff have an understanding of that specially designed instruction, and that's going to make them feel more like a teacher and not just, I'm just going in, I'm a reader, I'm just going in and providing a scribe. No, special education is so much more than that. And I think we all know that. All the scholars here today, we know that. But again, just doing our best to make sure that they have that understanding of that's one of the 3 prongs of special education. And I think a very, very important prong that sometimes we just kind of say, oh yeah, let's give them SDI. But we don't know what SDI is. And we could all debate on the definition of SDI, but helping our staff have that understanding of Marilyn Friend does a lot of trainings and research when it comes to SDI. But I think that alone helps retain those teachers to where it's not just paperwork and compliance. I don't want to get sued, but I don't ever get to really teach kids. And it's a juggling act. It really is. And I know that. I could talk about this stuff all day, but I know my time is up. So I will go ahead and stop there and be glad to cater to a couple questions if anyone has any questions. Other than that, I'll turn it over to Bill, I think.
Thank you, Superintendent Lee. Very much appreciate the information that you've shared with us today. And actually, I think I'm going to turn it over to Pete. I think we're probably at a break.
Yes, sir, Bill, we are at a break. Let's come back together at 10 after the hour. And Becca will help me. Becca, are we going to come back into breakout rooms or where are we?
Yeah, when we get back, we're going to move to our smaller group, our breakout rooms, and I may go ahead. The breakout rooms are presenting a little differently. So when you come back, you may already be in your breakout room, if that's okay.
That'll be perfect. Okay,
Okay.
10 after the hour. Please return. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becca, I'm going to switch devices,
Okay.
if that's okay. And so I will be trying to get back into the meeting.
Oh, if you are you switching to a mobile device?
I am, yes.
That will limit the ability to join a breakout room.
Okay.
Possibly, but if that is the case, you just do what you have to do, and we so appreciate your time and what you shared today. So if we are unable to connect again, let me just say thank you for your time this morning.
You're welcome.
Honestly,
If y'all have any questions, feel free to send them my way, okay?
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
For those of you that are in the larger forum, can you let me know if you're back? I'm having a little bit of trouble assigning to the breakout rooms. Bill, if you're in here, I've already tried to send you and Katie Cooper to a room.
I'm here.
Okay, my computer is, it says that the room is open, but it clearly is not. So we may want to think about Yeah, I keep getting notes that the participants have failed to move. We have some options, so we can have a large group discussion, or Bill or Veronica, I'm sorry, Bill or Pete, you can try to assign participants. I already have the rooms created, but people just are not moving. So it does look different than, it looks like an update has been made to breakout rooms, and it looks different than it has in the past. So
Becca, on my screen, I have a link, a button at the top that says join room. I don't know if that's the same for everyone. Is that what we need to do?
I don't see that, Bill.
okay, it looks a little different. Let's see.
Heck, I'll do whatever would be helpful.
Okay. Bill, click on join a room and see if you,
Yeah, will do.
okay. Oh, okay. So if you have the option to join a room, go ahead and click on that now. If you guys have been given the option to join a room, click on that link. And for those of you that are still here, it's going to let me slowly move you. As the option to join a room, if you get that as it comes up, click on that link. If you have joined from a mobile device, then that will limit your ability to join a breakout room. Looks like some of, yes ma'am, Krista?
Can I ask, when I'm doing join a room, it's allowing me to see that there's a room, but it will not let me enter. It's the join now is like blurred out.
Okay, let's see.
So I don't know if anybody else is getting that, but that is what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Okay, Katie says same.
Yeah, that's same.
Let's see. We will fix this. Has anybody successfully joined a room?
No,
No. Okay.
I see Krista and Katie.
I think our numbers have gone down.
Yeah, some people have. I just keep getting participant failed to move. Let me try closing the rooms, bring everyone back in, and then we'll just try opening the rooms again.
Okay.
Were some of you able to successfully join in a room?
Yeah.
Some of you were able to, okay. If you guys could you let me know if you're joining from a mobile device or if it's your laptop?
And now we're back.
Yeah. I'm trying to open those rooms again, so.
So now I have a nice big blue box that popped up says join my breakout room. So
Oh, go join it then. Yeah.
All right.
Is that what we should do? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I did not get a box that says that.
Okay.
Let me see.
Misty doesn't either. Let's see.
Yeah, that box has not popped up for me at all yet.
Oh, wait, I got it.
You got
Where is it?
Lindsay, I think I still have, I need to give you the option. Let's see, Lindsay. Okay, Lindsay, you should have Catherine, you're next. I'm going to work on you next. Lindsay, you should have the option
Oh,
to
I've
join
got
in
it
just a moment.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, good. You're welcome. And Misty, I'm going to work on you next.
Okay,
Let's
sounds
see.
good.
Um, and let's see, Josh. Misty, let me know if you still have not received an option. Misty, were you able to join a room? Welcome back, everyone. There are still a few participants that I think are joining the main room. It looks like, well, no, Bill's here. Okay.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. If the facilitators of the breakout rooms could provide a little bit of follow-up, just a summary of what you discussed in your rooms, that'd be great. Let's start with Katie Cooper.
Right. It's always nice to be the first one, right? So a lot of our conversation was around, I think we all know what we need to do to support teacher. There are a lot of common themes that we saw as we were going through, the chat and listening to Mr. Lee talk. And we know we need to be responsive. We need to be present for teachers. We need to identify the supports that they need and make sure that they're getting them. But we also sometimes need to be intentional about telling teachers that what they are getting is support. And sometimes I think that teachers want to hear positive feedback and they don't always recognize some of the other supports that are in place for them. So being very intentional about that. We talked a lot about, time. There's always going to be something. It's going to be money. It's going to be people. It's going to be time. There's always something that we're going to need, and we have to be able to push through that. But being able to give teachers time can be one of the best gifts that we can give them. They often come in at the beginning of the school year and they get their class roster, and then they get their kids and it's a different story than what they read, but there's not time later for them to go back and look at that and make sure that they have it. There's also a need for them to be able to observe other teachers who are doing well, to have a structure in place for teachers to observe each other, which, kind of goes back into that money and people and time issue that I think a lot of us experience in leadership roles. And so those were our big overarching themes. I think a lot of it was around, support and making sure that we have that available. And then also just making sure that we're not giving teachers way too much at one time. So here is a list of 55 things that you need to do. And if you don't do them, you're not a good teacher. It would be much easier for us to think of them like we think of our students and say, let's work on one or two small things. And then when we get there, we can go to the next so that we're not overwhelming them. Do you all feel like I summed it up?
Beautiful summary.
Yeah, well done.
Great, thank you. Allison Nelson, if you'd please provide us a quick summary.
Yeah, so I feel like we saw very similar things in our discussion as well. I will say that there was a lot of discussion around connections, building relationships, having administrators that create opportunities for staff to interact with and be mentored by or mentor others across multiple disciplines. So we had some conversations about, letting general education staff and special education staff work together, or even educators from other disciplines, whether it's, your school psychologist or other administrators that may have various backgrounds. Also, the concept of finding out what it is that your teachers need to feel supported. So at the end of our conversation, we had one of our members that brought up a needs assessment, right? So thinking about who are the stakeholders whenever we're making these decisions about what resources we're providing, and making sure that you're seeking out input from various stakeholders and that you're taking that information into consideration when you make decisions. And then I think, too, it was a breath of fresh air to hear Mr. Lee talk about this mindset shift from focusing on instruction, right? Like, you know, compliance is the floor, but if we have efficient and effective systems in place, we can meet compliance. We really need to focus on providing students with quality instruction that helps them to acquire skills that they need to be successful. So hopefully that was.
Yes, great job, Allison. Thank you. That I was in Allison's group. That's you. Great job. Yes. And Krista, will you please summarize?
Sure. We really talked about a lot of the same things, feeling that support, especially as new teachers that are coming in the buildings, to help with that retention, giving them the time to have quality teachers. So allowing them to grow as a professional, allowing them to have time to extend their education, encourage that. You know, all teachers are lifelong learners, so not allowing them to kind of fall in between the cracks, encouraging them to do that. A lot of the conversation surrounded that. A lot of us did feel support from our administration. We knew the expectations, but sometimes it wasn't visible when it came beyond the administration. Where did we see that for central office level? So that was a conversation of how could that be better and how could that bring forth to the table, involving more stakeholders, especially when it comes to quality and student support and retention. Something else that was brought up was, we did talk about district level and bringing that into the board. We kind of briefly talked about the numbers that we threw out there. So that 3 and 4, like how can that be? How can that raise? How can we get that conversation started? That was kind of our sum of it.
Great. Thank you, Krista. Thank you. And for all 3 of our scholars that facilitated the session today, we really appreciate you taking that role and leading these conversations that help us make the connection between the presentation and this group and moving forward, how we can take this out into the field. And Pete, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, again, thanks to everyone, especially our facilitators, and enjoyed that opportunity to participate. Yes, the evaluation should be in the chat, same as always. I did want to wrap up with an announcement that one of our scholars, Stacy Hutchison, has been nominated for Kentucky Special Education Teacher of the Year. So again, yes, congratulations to her, but it's a very special opportunity. So without further ado, we will see you as a grown group, double-sized group on the 23rd of next month. So enjoy your fall break, and we will see you then. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Stacy.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you all so much. I was not expecting a shout out there, Mr. Heckner.
Guys, I'm gonna reach out and call you, Bill, and then we'll pull Pete into that call, I think, right? Does that sound good? Oh, I can't hear you, Bill. I'm sorry. You're muted.